I don't know what's going on with you.
How could you know? You're never around. The needs of your friends and your work are more important than our needs.
Don't play that game with me. It's always me and my needs versus yours and the kids.
I can't do this anymore. I want a divorce.
Fine. This has been coming for quite some time. Wendy and I have drifted apart.
It's like we're roommates. I need more than this from life.
I've known Wendy and Harry for quite some time. I drafted their wills right after the twins were born.
We don't want a messy divorce. We don't want to put the children through that.
I hope we can get this over with as quickly as possible, without a lot of legal bills.
I feel sorry for them. The end of a marriage is difficult. There's a lot to work through, especially when kids are involved. There are many issues to deal with in a divorce, and it can be overwhelming, and it may be too much to do yourself.
Wendy and I have talked it through, and we'd like to handle this ourselves. We really don't want to have to hire lawyers, but we need information.
We don't have a lot of money. Some friends of Harry's at work said we could do this on our own. Janice said she'd help us.
When a couple goes through a divorce without an attorney, it's called pro se.
Let me start by saying how sorry I am to be meeting with you both here today under these circumstances. And because I've represented you both in the past and because you're here together today, I won't be able to represent either of you if you decide you do need a divorce lawyer. So if you have questions, go ahead and fire away.
Well, we really weren't planning on hiring lawyers. Is that a good idea?
Many couples feel they can handle a divorce on their own, and some decide as they move along that they do need to hire a lawyer. Others take it all the way through themselves. It just depends.
Depends on what?
Several issues. It can depend on the length of your marriage, health issues, assets, your incomes.
And when wouldn't it work?
That's a hard call. It probably wouldn't be a good idea if there's complicated real estate involved, if you own a business, if there's a lot of debt or assets, or if you have a pension or retirement plan. You may also want to consider legal help if one of you has very different incomes than the other, or if you have serious health issues now or anticipate that in the future.
Does having kids make a difference?
Yes, it can. If you don't agree on how you're going to handle custody or placement of the kids, if you have children not from your marriage, or if there's any history of domestic violence or abuse of the children, you should definitely think about those issues.
Well, we've had our problems, that's for sure, but nothing in any of the areas you've just mentioned. So I think we're still game to hear about the do-it-yourself process.
Yes, we are.
Well, in that case, you'll start by filling out a joint petition. That's because you're filing this together, jointly.
How hard is it to fill out this petition? Do we need a lawyer for that?
It's not difficult to fill out the petition. You just basically fill in the blanks. And you don't need a lawyer for a petition, but if your case is complicated, you may need one, like we talked about earlier.
If you weren't filing jointly, you would need a summons and a petition. A summons is notice to another person that they are a party in that case. A summons must be served with the petition, either personally by the sheriff or by a private process server. Service can also be completed by the spouse, signing a form admitting to receiving the papers in the mail. If your spouse can't be found despite your best efforts, you can serve the papers by publishing a notice in the newspaper. But that gets very complex and actually might be another reason to see a lawyer.
Where do we get the form for this petition?
You can have this form, but in Dane County and all other counties in the state, you go to the courthouse or the Family Court Commissioner's office and ask for the form. They're also available online, and you simply print or type neatly to fill it out. By the way, you two have been in Wisconsin a while now, haven't you?
12 years now. Why?
There are residency requirements. One of you must have lived in the state for at least 6 months, and you have to have lived in the county where you're filing the petition for at least 30 days.
Okay, so we've filled out the petition and we need to file it. How do we do that?
You take your joint petition and 3 copies to the clerk of courts for filing.
Is there some kind of fee for filing?
There is. Right now, it's around $175 or $185 if kids are involved.
If you cannot afford to pay the filing fee, you can apply for a fee waiver by filling out forms at the Clerk of Courts or the Family Court Commissioner's office, depending on the county where you live.
What do you do with the extra copies?
The Clerk of Courts will stamp the copies. You'll take 1 copy to the Family Court Commissioner, which is called service on the Family Court Commissioner, and the other 2 copies are for you 2 to keep.
Not only do you have to serve the other party when a summons and petition are filed, but the Child Support Agency must also be served copies of all papers if minor children are involved and if one of the parties is receiving public assistance for the children.
Now, if for some reason it turns out that only one of you are to start the divorce, then you would fill out a summons and another petition and take that to the Clerk of Courts. Don't worry, if you need help, the Family Court Commissioner's office can help you. They can't give legal advice, but if you're unclear on something, just ask. Now, you can't get your divorce for 120 days. During this time, you can seek mediation, or you can work together to reach a marital settlement agreement. A marital settlement agreement form should be available wherever you got your petition form. It will cover any issues regarding property or your children after the divorce. You need to make arrangements for handling your debts and assets, money matters, and your kids. You need to agree on everything from what happens to the house, to the rake, to the furniture, to the laundry baskets.
Does anything else happen at the courthouse during those 120 days?
In many counties, there will be a meeting between you 2 and the judge or the court commissioner. This meeting is called a pretrial hearing or a status conference. This meeting is to determine what issues may yet need to be resolved, and secondly, how much time it will take for that final hearing.
What happens to our property during these 120 days? Who decides where we both will live?
And how will we handle the money? And the kids? They don't know anything about this yet. At least we don't think they do.
The more you work together and reach agreement on your own, the better your chances are of getting through this without having to hire a lawyer. But if you can't reach agreement about what happens, you can request a temporary order hearing. The temporary order hearing is to decide temporarily about issues in your everyday life, like child support and placement, property issues, who will pay the rent or mortgage. If you can't come to an agreement on those, one of you would need to file a form requesting a temporary order hearing. But my best advice is that you keep talking and working together to reach a marital settlement agreement. If you can't reach an agreement, you can seek mediation. And here's information about mediation.
A mediator can help you communicate a fair agreement and even teach you some techniques for handling future disputes without having to go back to court. The mediator may or may not be a lawyer, but all mediators are trained to help you communicate and come to your own decisions. For example, how you want your children and their support to be handled. Also, how money and property and debts are divided. And although a mediator can't give you legal advice, he or she understands court procedure and can help you prepare your case. The cost would usually be shared between the 2 of you.
Okay, but if we do have the marital settlement agreement, then what's the final hearing for?
At the final hearing, the judge will review any agreements you've reached. He must approve agreements that you've reached, and then he'll grant an order that will actually divorce you, called a judgment of divorce.
Will this judge be snooping into our private lives?
There will be questions about your agreement. Let's say your financial agreement is lopsided. The judge might want to know about that. But the days of blaming each other for the failure of the marriage are gone in Wisconsin. We're a no-fault state now, which means there's no need for a list of bad behavior or faults. You just say the marriage is irretrievably broken.
Well, I'm afraid that's exactly the case for us. So that's it? The judge won't ask anything else?
Well, he'll ask if you're pregnant.
No chance of that.
Me either.
Well, the judge will ask, and you need to be honest, because if you were pregnant, the judge would want to know if Harry were the father.
Another easy part.
The judge will also ask whether either of you have ever been married before and how those ended. And if you are still struggling to come up with your marital settlement agreement, he'll delve into that.
I can't imagine we'll agree on everything. We never have before.
If you haven't worked it all out, you'll have a contested trial with a judge. And at this point, you probably will want lawyers, especially if one of the things you haven't agreed on is custody and placement of your kids.
That's a hard part. I love my kids.
So do I. Do we have to have the answers about the kids ourselves?
Not necessarily, but if you still have disputes about the children, the court will order mediation. And if that still doesn't work, the court will appoint a guardian ad litem. This person is called a GAL. This person is an attorney who will meet with you and your children to determine what's best for them. He will make a recommendation back to the court for what's in the best interest of your children.
Well, I know as their father that I have rights. And if it's going to take a lawyer, so be it.
Nobody said you don't have rights. It's getting more complicated.
Well, if you can't work it out, then time and costs will increase. You may have to pay for a custody and placement evaluation, the guardian ad litem's time, mediation sessions after the first free session. Who knows, the guardian ad litem could even recommend a psychiatric evaluation of your kids, and that's expensive. The more you work it out yourselves, the better. But get professional help if either one of you or the kids feel manipulated or abused.
I want to be assured of my parental rights, to see my kids on a regular basis, and I want what's coming to me.
I'm not interested in using the kids as bargaining chips, but I do want this to be a fair agreement.
I hope Wendy and I can agree on things, so we can avoid too many legal bills.
I wish it never came to this, but it's time to get on with our lives.
People can successfully do their own divorces. To help you succeed, remember, even if you aren't a lawyer, the court still expects a lot of you. You have to give a copy of all papers filed with the court to all parties, understand and keep deadlines, and treat everyone at court with respect. Divorce can be a very stressful event in your life, and doing it yourself may seem like too much. Please do not be afraid to ask for help. There are lots of resources out there, websites, written information, the Family Court Commissioner, and if it doesn't work out, lots of helpful lawyers.
I don't know what's going on with you.
How could you know? You're never around. The needs of your friends and your work are more important than our needs.
Don't play that game with me. It's always me and my needs versus yours and the kids.
I can't do this anymore. I want a divorce.
Fine. This has been coming for quite some time. Wendy and I have drifted apart.
It's like we're roommates. I need more than this from life.
I've known Wendy and Harry for quite some time. I drafted their wills right after the twins were born.